let's talk about how to form a thesis statement, in this case for your literary analysis essay. So remember when you're writing this that you're not going to actually write "the author believes that." This, our thought bubble, is because this phrase will never appear in your essay. But you should think this and then put something in after it to form whatever your thesis statement would be. I didn't really talk about the point of doing this in the first place, the point of writing a literary analysis essay. And the point for you in the past, and I guess now too, will probably realistically just be, well, because this world is set up so that I have to get a diploma to move on, and these English teachers are the gatekeepers of one portion of the credits that I need in order to get that, and whatever they say, I don't know, they want us to write these dumb papers about stuff, so I'm going to do it in order to jump through the hoop and get my diploma and get out. And that's fine, but I mean, it's worth thinking about the idea that you write these and you read these in some form all the time. Like, have you ever, or raise your hand if you ever saw a video like 10 Reasons Why Thanos is Actually the Good Guy or something, and you clicked on it and you watched it. How many you've done it? Yeah, you've done it. Maybe not that specific one, but something like that, right? Something where it's like, everything you knew is actually the reverse, and I'm going to tell you why. And you click on it and you watch it. Why did you watch it? Why did you waste your time with that? Why? But I mean, why did you do it, really? You don't know? I'm going to tell you why you watched it. You watched it because it invites you to think about something that you're already familiar with and enjoy in a different way. It's like a watered down version of a comedy show. You know, you go to the comedy club and you pay your ticket and you sit down. Why did you pay to get in? Because these people are going to come up and they're going to talk about things you're already very familiar with. They're going to talk about lampshades and dogs and relationships with parents and children and those things. But they're going to do it in just such a way that you think about it differently. And that's what a joke does. They give you this information that you're familiar with, and then at the end they connect it to something that's unexpected, and it forms a new pathway in your brain, and you go, ooh, that feels good. Oh, my synapses are firing, woohoo. And that's what happens when you read a book or you watch a movie, you consume something, you just kind of react to it instinctually. Your brain does the work for you, and then you move on. But if you think about something deeply, or someone else thinks about something deeply and you read what they've thought about it, then it kind of, it connects it. You think about something in a different way, and it gives you a deeper experience. And then hopefully, because human beings interpret life through stories, it will also deepen your understanding of the human experience and life in general. That's a long explanation of what we're getting at here. Also, just for an exercise and for the Utah State Core, it's good for the purpose of, just as it says in writing 1-1 or whatever, students will be able to identify a central theme or central idea in a story or essay or whatever it is, and explain that with logical reasoning. Okay. So, what you want to do with this, you want to come up with an idea that explores things a little bit, but it doesn't go so far out on the branch that the branch breaks off. So maybe you'll watch that video that's like 10 Reasons Why Thanos is Actually the Good Guy or whatever. But it's not to say that you're trying to unravel all of the universe and say something that's completely wrong or immoral or whatever, and make people believe something that surely is not true. That's not the point either. You're trying to dig and find something that is true, that applies to the human experience in general, but that is not so boring and expected that everybody already knew it anyway. So it's an exercise of trying to find some nugget of truth that someone else might not thought of. And you've all had this experience too. When a teacher asks a question like, all right, in The Lion King, when Simba goes into the graveyard, what do those elephant tusks actually represent? Okay, or what do those dead elephants represent? This is, a big, nasty English teacher question. Like, I don't want to think about that. They're just elephants. Don't make me do that. But then someone in the class is like, well, maybe those elephants are the largest animals in the savannah, and their death is those are the things that lions eat, but they're sitting here, they're already dead, and they have no more value for lions or something. They say something that makes you start thinking about the symbolism in a way that appeals to you. And 3 or 4 students look over, and maybe they even go like, oh, or someone actually, oh. You ever made a comment in a class, and a couple of people go, oh yeah. Feels super good, right? That's what you're doing when you're writing a literary analysis essay. You're trying to write something that's interesting enough and unique enough that you can make your readers go, okay, yeah, I never thought of that before. All right. We did The Lion King last time, and did anyone come up with a thesis statement? Let's hear it.
We don't run from our problems.
Okay, so in The Lion King, the author believes that we don't run from our problems. Okay, all right. So you come up with your thesis statement. You got, all right, Simba, by running away, creates all these problems, but when he returns to the Pride Land, he's able to solve things in really short order. The rains return, and the grass turns green, and all the hyenas just vanish, and life, gets real good. Okay, so you come up with this thesis statement. You're not done yet. It's time to perform the gut check. You've got your thesis statement, so imagine this. I mean, all of this is imaginary. It exists as you perform the gut check. But imagine yourself going out onto a stage, and the entire auditorium is filled with those students that, I think we mentioned this last time. In every class, you have 2 or 3 students that raise their hands. Well, actually, that's not true because of this. In this case, the entire auditorium is filled with those students, and all of them are in 9th grade. So they can't wait to just find something in your argument that won't work. All right, so you go out there and you say, hey everybody, here's my thesis statement. The author of The Lion King believes that, and we know this from the story, that we don't run from our problems. That's what The Lion King is about. Okay, now imagine all those 9th graders. Well, actually, and do any hands fly up, and what do they say? Go ahead. So someone in your audience said, well, actually, Timon and Pumbaa, they ran away, and they got along just fine. What do you say to that? Exactly. And they were better off for it, right? They weren't preyed on by lions and things. They go back, they do some noble deeds, restoring the kingdom. And so you're like, okay, all right, 1 pettifogger down. It holds. Okay, but we're not done yet, because one of them pops up and says, we? Who's we? I don't. What are you going to do about that? So this one's actually easy. There are a lot of times when just the way that you phrased your thesis statement cause problems. Well, who is we? We don't run from our problems? Well, lots of us do. In fact, most of us do. But so who are you talking about when you say we in the context of the Lion King? Simba, but what does Simba represent?
Everyone.
No, not everyone.
Not everyone. Like the people, like if the shoe fits.
Well, I think what you're going for with this is people who end up doing the right thing. The hero, good people.
Yeah.
So a noble person. So, I mean, you phrase that how you want, but it would be something like people who lead noble lives don't run from their problems rather than we. Okay, so phrase that however you want, but you get that, take it back to the pettifoggers and say, okay, now I got it. The theme of The Lion King, the thesis statement is noble people don't run from their problems. And by this point, it's probably safe. You can probably make it with that. Then after that, of course, you start proving it with things that happen in The Lion King. And you want to choose interesting things, not totally obvious, but not wrong. That is, don't make something so unique and novel just for novelty's sake that it ends up not being correct. But find some interesting things, at least 3, that support this idea that noble people don't run from their problems. Let's try it again. Let's do Moana, okay? All right, so everybody think about this for a minute. In Moana, and you kind of got 3 different stories going on in Moana. Maui's, the thesis statement you would make from Maui's perspective would be a little bit different than Moana's, and that one would be a little bit different than the village or the society itself with the volcano mother thing. So, and maybe maybe you can find one that unifies all 3 of those, but think about that. Think through the events of Moana and consider, well, what is the author really trying to say to the world with this film? And it's not always just, it's not always the moral of the story. It's not always and that's how you be a good person, the end, and be nice to your parents and everything will go well, the end. Sometimes it's really negative. It's always going to be something that's true for humanity. You're going to find something that is the central idea of the story. It communicates something important about what it means to be a human being. Now, think about it for a minute. Write some down. I don't want to collect them yet because I don't want them to influence your idea for the thesis statement. Write down a thesis statement for Moana. So, as you do this, remember, you want to think of something that's general enough that you're able to find examples and talk about it, but you also want to find something that's interesting. So if you look at yours and it's a little too obvious, you'll see if you can tweak it a little bit to be something that would be like that 10 reasons why Thanos is the good guy. You don't need to disprove the universe, but you want to do something that will be thought-provoking, that people will be interested in. Let's have it. You must know who you are. What else? Yeah?
The end isn't always what you expect.
Things don't always end as you expect. Is that basically what you said? Okay. What else? Yep. Okay. Okay. Yeah?
Well, I just don't know. I was just gonna say traditional isn't always the right way.
Tradition isn't always right. Right? Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Rewards come to those who pursue right rather than normal. Well, yeah, let's take these to the auditorium, okay? The thesis statement of Moana is as follows. Tradition isn't always right. All right. What did they say? Did it make it already? As you consult your gut, does it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, throughout the, if I were to come at it, I would say, well, throughout the whole time, from the time they came to the island, everything was going perfectly until Moana wanted to disobey and leave.
But then in defense to that pettifoggery, what would you say?
Well, but I would probably say, well, without Moana, though, they would have lived in this life, and someone would eventually disobey them.
But in that story, if she didn't disobey, wasn't it like they were already doomed? Like it was.
All the fish were gone, and so she had to do something, or else everyone would starve.
So we get from the later portion of the story that they'd all just die. There'd be no food. They'd starve to death. Grim. Yeah?
Well, the original tradition is what Moana was like doing, and then the tradition changed.
Okay, so there's maybe. So that's the idea. In her breaking of the tradition, she discovers that the real tradition was going out and traveling and adventuring. And so she discovers a deeper tradition in doing so, which adds value again to the idea of tradition. So maybe you want to tweak the wording of this in order to keep those pettifoggers at bay. Do you have any ideas to do so? So tell me if this encapsulates whatever that was. Okay, tradition. Tradition has deep value, but must be challenged when necessary. Necessary. What do you think?
Yeah.
Except for. No, nothing? It works?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, let's take that back to the auditorium. All right, everybody. Tradition has deep value, but must be challenged when necessary. Must be? I don't know. Maybe the must is, I'm not sure there.
But can be challenged.
But can be challenged when necessary?
Should be challenged.
Should be challenged when necessary.
Should? I don't know. Looks like we need to figure out. And by the way, this process of wording your thesis statement especially just right is very important, and you should do this. If there's one sentence you should agonize over for longer than the others, this is the one. And I'm not sure if can or should or must is best, or even if you want to redo this so we don't have to say can or should or must, because those qualifiers usually aren't a good thing to put in your sentences anyway. Tradition has deep value. I'm not sure. Well, but got something like this. All right. Now, let's see if we can prove it. So we got a good idea, and you do a lot of the proving it just when you think about what the thesis statement is, and that's valuable. But now we want to write these down. 3 things that we can spend a paragraph on explicating this idea that tradition has deep value, but must be challenged when necessary. So what do we have? Okay, good. Maybe, so that might be one of our later paragraphs. Now, that's not to say that you should always challenge tradition, because sometimes when you do it needlessly, it's a problem. Okay. When Dad did it for fun, Trouble. Okay. Do you have one?
Moana, like,
The colonists from the past?
I don't know. Like they decided to go against that tradition of moving, and
Oh, yeah.
they stayed and they didn't.
Colonists of current island violated tradition. And that was bad because,
I mean, eventually it started to eat at them, and they were gonna die eventually. So it's just an island; they're gonna lose resources eventually. So.
and now they're in a pickle. I like that you added at the end, and now they're going to lose resources. Even if you didn't have this disaster that's destroying all the fish, eventually they'll stagnate there. Okay, good. What else? What's something else that happens that proves this idea that tradition has deep value but must be challenged when necessary? Yeah?
Like when you were saying before that if Moana didn't go and like challenge it, then everyone would die.
Yeah, and maybe, you know what, maybe that's the first one. Because that's, I mean, sometimes you're going to, not everything you say has to be this super novel thing that no one's ever heard of. Just right off the bat, obviously, Moana defies tradition and it ends up saving the village. You can write an essay on that. And I'm sure that, you know, on one of these, when we were talking about it, maybe it was just a little stirring, but I'll bet you had a response like, that's interesting. I haven't thought of that before. Or I just kind of watched it. I didn't really pay attention. My brain just took all of that in without actually processing. But now that I actually summarize it in words, there's some depth there. I kind of want to go watch Moana again and see. That experience is what we're going for. Okay, got to make one of these for the old man in the sea, right? You want it to be the same kind of thing. You want to think about what happens in the old man in the sea. You think about what happens with the dreams that he has with the lions. You want to think about the marlin and all the things that does compared to, say, the sharks. And the sharks compared to the different other kinds of sharks. And how those compare to flying fish. And what the different parts of the ocean, what the clouds and all those things represent. What the old man represents, what the village represents, what Manolin represents, what the markets represent, what this poverty represents. Think about everything in that story and try and come up with something that you believe the author is trying to say that is sufficiently unique that you can talk about and keep us interested, but not so unique and crazy that it doesn't make sense for us. Okay.